Hey everybody, today's topic is wedging, and I know it's the bane of everyone's existence, but it's really an important part of working with clay. If you don't have your clay uniform, free of air bubbles, free of gushy spots and hard lumps, it's really hard to make it work either on the wheel or for hand building. So take a moment with me and let's learn two important ways to get your clay ready from the start so that you'll have success through the rest of your project. We're going to learn how to do ram's head wedging, which for my hands is a good technique up to about 4 pounds of clay. And then we're going to use the spiral wedging or chrysanthemum wedging technique to deal with pieces of clay that are larger than 4 pounds. If you ever want to put a big chunk of clay on the wheel or you want to make a nice big slab, it's really important to know how to get that clay uniform. So I'm going to change the camera angle and we're going to get to it. Okay, I have 4 pounds of clay here. This came out of my pug mill and probably could just be used as is, but I'm going to show you how to do ram's head wedging on it. If you are cutting a piece of clay fresh off of your block of clay, make sure that you're cutting off a piece that is thick enough that you can get kind of a nice cube out of it. You don't want to start with a little thin flap of clay and immediately fold it over and entrap air. It's just making your life that much harder to have to get the air bubbles out that you just trapped. So kind of beat it into a nice cube to start with, whatever you started out with. It doesn't have to be a cube, but just something nice and compact like that. And then get your stance set up so that you can kind of rock with your whole body. Your hands contain the clay from the sides. So I never want to actually see the backs of my hands. If I'm seeing it at any point of the process, I'm not doing what I need to do, which is to keep that clay nice and compact. So I'm giving 2 thumbs up, putting my hands around the clay. My hands are almost like little parentheses around the clay. And then I'm just going to push, I'm going to sort of fold the thumbs together and just push gently. That's all you need. You don't have to smear it halfway across the table. And then we're going to roll it towards us. On the way up, there's no tension. It's just rolling and pivoting. Then you re-grip it. At this point, you're holding onto the clay and squishing it back down. And so you can see my hands are never turning open so that I can keep squeezing the clay towards the center. I'm not trying to do a lot with each pull or each push, just lots of repetitions. I'm going to slow it down, releasing on the way up, gripping and pushing on the way down. And this is called ram's head because it somewhat looks like a ram. It's got kind of a nose, 2 eye sockets, and some curling horns. If those horns are bighorn sheep horns and they're doing weird things, then your right hand and your left hand on either side of the clay, they're falling down on the job. They've got to keep it nice and compact. It should look spirally, but not super, I don't know how to call it, maybe indented or disorganized. It should be just kind of a nice compact spiral. So I'm going to just do it some more. When you first learn how to do this, you're most likely going to kind of walk off the front of the table. And if you do, you don't want to, I guess, hop it after every move. You just want to move the whole thing back in the same orientation and keep going. And the thing that I find helps to keep it from walking off the front of the table is to actually roll it farther so that I can push it back away, and I'm pushing the clay down into the chin of the ram. So how do you know when you're done? I'm watching the back side of this piece of clay. And if this was not previously prepared clay, there would probably be some air bubbles popping back there, maybe some streaks of different color, but this is looking quite uniform. So once you start seeing uniform color, no air bubbles popping, you're not hearing any like gum cracking sounds, go for a little bit longer and then call it done. If it's pretty good, fresh clay, it probably only takes about 50 revolutions to get it done, and that doesn't take that long, a minute at the rate I was doing it. If it's older, recycled clay, some hard bits, some soft bits, it's going to take maybe 100 or more revolutions, and just don't shortchange it. It just makes your life harder later on. How can you check? Well, let's turn it on its side and run a wire through it. This will actually be better with a smooth wire. We're gonna check and see. So you can see it's fairly uniform. I don't see Swiss cheese. I'm not seeing air bubbles. And then if I take it and kind of smash it sideways, it shouldn't show big ripples or wrinkles. If it's showing a lot of big ripples or wrinkles, that's a sign that there are density differences in the clay. You need to keep going. This has got one little kind of swirl right in the very middle. And I don't think that really is an indication of anything. Let's try the other side. So same thing. You can kind of see a little bit of spiraling, which may mean that there's slight bands of stiff and softer clay. So maybe I should put it together and do it some more. But that's the technique. Common mistakes. People will take and turn their hands out and smush it really far. And then they try to roll it up and smush it really far. And every time they do that, it gets longer and the ends get more disorganized, and there's nice ample places for air to get trapped. So keep your hands on the sides and keep pressing inward. It's a good workout. And lots of little pushes. If you're ever seeing something of the back of your hand, you're probably not doing it quite right. Don't worry, it takes practice, just like anything else, but it's worth the effort to learn how to do this accurately and efficiently, because it's kind of going to be the beginning of every clay project you do from here on out. So I'm going to get some more clay and show you spiral wedging next. All right, we're doubling the amount of clay, and I could try to use the ram's head wedging technique for this, but I can't really get my hands around it, and it's really hard work. So I'm just going to stop and show you what happens when the clay gets 8 pounds or so, or anything really 5 and above. The spiral wedging technique will be your friend. So it's really not that different in concept from the ram's head technique. We're still going to roll the clay back towards us, but instead of just rolling it straight, we're also going to twist it. And then we're going to push with just one hand. And I push with my left, and then I lift up and twist with my right. I'm going to take a few turns like this to get it in the right shape so you can kind of see how this is going to form. What I want to see is something that kind of looks like a weird conch shell. So my right hand is doing the same thing it was doing in ram's head. It's sealing the end, keeping the spiral from being too disorganized. My left hand is doing kind of what both of my hands were doing together. It's kind of joining where my thumbs are coming close together, and then I'm pushing with the left. And I'm compressing inward with my right. It's still rolling towards me and pushing back away, but now there's this little twist. And every time I twist it, the heel of the clay moves under the mass of the clay, and then I push the clay down so that heel kind of gets absorbed by the mass of the clay. If you're not keeping enough pressure with your right hand against the end of it, this will get really rough and indented. And if you're trying to do too much at once, those folds will become really deep and they'll become a liability for actually trapping air. But after you try to chase one of these guys around the table for a while and kind of figure out how much twist, how much lift, how much push back down, it should stay put like this. And it lets you just handle a nice big piece of clay. Okay, this isn't a great shape though to put down on the wheel. So what do? We're going to keep going, but we're going to start decreasing the amount of force with which we're pushing on the left hand, and continue to do the twisting with the right. So I'm going to start letting off on the right hand, or the left hand, and continue to work this around. And it's going to kind of roll it into a cone. And so all those weird extra edges are now kind of worked in, and I've got this nose cone kind of bullet shape, and I've got this sort of belly button and spiral on the backside. When you look at the overall shape, you might be tempted to put it down on the wheel like this. But of course, if you think about it, there's a giant hole in the middle, you're going to have a giant hole in the bottom of your piece. So when you orient the clay after spiral wedging to the wheel, you want to go point down. For ram's head wedging, you actually put it down in the same orientation that you were ram's head wedging. The idea is to not have the spirals against the wheel where the bottom of the piece is going to end up forming cracks. All right, so I'm a little out of breath. It is hard work, but give it a go. See how you can go with your spiral wedging and your ram's head wedging. I promise if you get good at this part, it'll make everything downstream of this process that much easier. Thanks for watching.